Hello and welcome to the Ginger tutorials. I'm going to take you through creating SSH keys, private and public, and transferring them over to the server. So I'm going to be using a Raspberry Pi in this instance. So I'm just going to check my connection, make sure I can connect with a username and password. So it's generating a key because I had nothing in my known host file. So this is username and password authentication. If I can type my password correctly. So now what I'm going to do is show you where the public key will be stored. So if you do a ls, so this is from doing absolute path. This is from my home directory. So within your home directory, you have a hidden file called ssh. Sorry, directory. So if I do this, be a bit more clear. So we can see that there's a file within this called ssh. So I could do ls grep ssh. So as you can see there, we have a directory denoted by the D, and it's .ssh in my current directory of home pi, which is my username. So for the purpose, I was checking what files exist in there already, and it's just a known host file. So I'm going to log out, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to create keys, private and public. The private is stored on the client, the public goes to the server. The public's normally stored in the authorized keys within the .ssh directory. So just to show you, so this is my client now because I've logged out and come back in. So if I do, there's just going to be known hosts because when I logged in, it created a known host file. SSH. So as you can see, that's all that's there. So what we're going to be using is a ssh-keygen to create the keys. We're going to use the default settings. So it's going to copy it. We're going to create an RSA key. It's going to copy it to the default path, which is within the .ssh folder of the actual user. So to kick it off, ssh-keygen. And then we want to choose a type, which is an RSA, as I said. You can choose the size with the -b, but we're going to leave it at the standard, and it will create 3072-bit by default. You can specify a path if you want with -f, and then you give the path location. But I'm just going to leave it at this. So it's going to create a standard ID. It's going to name it ID RSA. Install. If I can type correctly, keygen. So it's asking enter the file. If you just hit enter, it gives you the standard. You want to put a passphrase on it so it protects it with a password. For this demo, if you enter a password which you're not using to log into your remote device, then that way you can tell the difference of whether you're using your key or your username and password, because it will prompt you to enter a password if you're using it for the first time. So unless it's loaded using an agent. So now if we check back here. As you can see, it's created. This is the public, sorry, this is the private, and this is the public key. The public, you can send that off to as many kind of clients if you want. Sorry, servers. The private you keep for yourself. It's your own kind of personal private key which you keep and don't distribute out. That's for you. So there is a tool called ssh-copy-id where you can actually copy, because we need to now copy the public key over to the, in my instance, the server, which is the Raspberry Pi. And then we basically need, it will log in and create the authorized file, because it's a file. It'll create that for you, and then it will copy or update the authorized file. So as we can see, you can do a dry run. We need to specify basically the ID, the identity, and the user. So this pi at $2. So bear in mind, you need to have access to this device because technically you're logging in. User bin, copy ID. So it's copied all the, because it's the defaults, I didn't specify the identity file. It's actually copied that for me because it's the defaults. It'll copy that for you. So it's just found the public key and it's gonna install that now. So you enter the password to the remote device. So it's added the device. So now if we check, if we log back in, SSH back in to the device, it's asking for the passphrase. So it's clear that it's now using the key. And if we check the SSH, it's now got the authorized keys. And if we open that up, it's just a file. You can see a copy of it. And all this is, so I'll come back out. If you make note, it ends FJ8 equals. Log out. And if I then SSH authorized key. No, sorry. It's ID rsa.pub. And it's the same. So all that was done, copied this over to the over to the server, created the directory, sorry, the file for you, rather than you copy and pasting them, because we're all about automation, and dumping it into the default location. So let's just log back over. So now, so if we do an ls, and there are some requirements that you set up, basically the standards, which this is taken care of as well. So it's the access, and you should have read-write access to it, and then all other users as a minimum should only have read access to the file. As as well as being password protected. Well, it doesn't need to be password protected, but it's best practice to do so. Next, if we don't want to be able to log in with a password and it's only keys, because you can still log in. If the key's not there, it will still log in with the password. So I could pretty much just, if I, just for the sake of it, ssh, and then we'll just move ID to, moves authorized to authorized dot back, and then log out. This should now be using your normal password authentication. See the difference? Different password. So now you're no longer using a key. So I'll move it back the other way, and it'll go back to keys. So to prevent this, if you just want to use keys once you've authorized, so if you don't want users to no longer, once you've confirmed the keys are working, so I'll just do one last real quick check. Type, and then stage back in. It's asking for to open it up. We could edit the ssh-d config file, and then we have to put in 2 lines of code, or 2 lines of code within the file. So let's go into that now. It's basically disabling the SSH password authentication. So you need to be a sudo to do this. Sudo in, and it's stored here, SSH. Make sure it's ssh-d and not SSH. Oops. D config. There we go. So we want to edit this and change this to no. And this is what we also want, challenge response authentication to no as well. Because sometimes that will allow you in. So I mean, if it was this use, as it says, change to yes, but it's set to no. So now password authentication is no, and it will just be the key. So if you come out, save that. So now it's only going to be a key that you authenticate with. One other thing you can do as well is you add the keys to the agent, so it will load the keys for you. So it's going to load the defaults, but my agent's not working not loaded at the moment. So if your agent's not loaded, you can use the eval ssh agent, yes, that will load the key, and then you can use ssh-add, because in the default location it's going to add your keys. If you have any other non-standard default keys named, then you have to specify the file location, the identity using the I along with the path. So enter the password. So now it's added. So now when you do that, it just logs you in. After a reboot, you'd have to redo. If your agent loads up by itself, you just do the ssh-add. And there we have it. So we have the ssh key creation, generation, along with loading it to the agent. So therefore, you don't have to keep typing the password in each time. Okay, thank you for listening.